Princess Zara stood at the massive viewing window of her ship, watching her homeworld die. Below, the planet Velia sparkled like a jewel, but not from the natural beauty it once held. A strange plague had swept across the surface, turning everything it touched into crystal. Trees, buildings, people all transformed into glittering statues of their former selves. The transformation looked beautiful from space. But Zara knew the truth. Each crystal formation had once been alive. Her people were running out of time, Your Highness, came the voice of her advisor, Commander Nico. The Galactic Council has agreed to see you today. Zara turned from the window. Her blue skin seemed pale, and her usually bright silver eyes looked tired. She had spent weeks traveling to reach the Council station, hoping the galaxy's most advanced races could help save her people. "Have they reviewed our situation?" she asked. Nico's expression was grim. "They have, Your Highness. But I must warn you, their initial response was not encouraging." Zara nodded. She had expected this. The Velian Empire had always been a smaller power in galactic politics. They were peaceful traders, not warriors or scientists like the major races. But she had to try. The council chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. The Kethran delegation sat in their floating pods, their tentacled forms moving slowly in the artificial atmosphere they required. The crystalline Zephyrite glowed with internal light, their thoughts transmitted through harmonic frequencies. The ancient Morvans, oldest of all spacefaring races, observed everything with their multiple eyes. At the center of the chamber stood a simple podium. Zara walked toward it, feeling the weight of every gaze upon her. These beings had technologies that could reshape solar systems. Surely they could help one small world. "Conard Council," Zara began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "I come before you seeking aid for my people. The crystallization plague that affects Velia threatens to destroy our entire civilization within 30 rotations." The Kethran representative spoke first. Their voice translated into standard galactic language. "Princess Zara of Velia, we have studied your planet's condition. The plague is indeed unprecedented in our records." Hope flickered in Zara's heart. However, the Kethran continued. "Our analysis indicates the resources required to develop a cure would exceed acceptable cost-benefit ratios. The Valian population of 12 million does not justify the expenditure of materials and research time that could benefit larger populations elsewhere." The words hit Zara like a physical blow. "Cost-benefit ratios? You speak of my people as numbers in a calculation." The Zephyrite delegate's harmonic response rang through the chamber. When translated, their words were equally cold. "Emotion clouds, judgment princess. Logic dictates resource allocation based on maximum benefit to the greatest number of lives. 12 million is regrettably small." "But you have the technology," Zara pressed. "Your quantum laboratories could synthesize a cure in weeks if you chose to help." "Technology exists to serve logical purposes," stated the Morvan elder, their ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. "We do not act on sentiment. If every species expected salvation simply because they required it, the galaxy would descend into chaos." One by one, the council members delivered their verdicts. All negative, all logical, all utterly without compassion. The hegemony of worlds had policies against intervention in natural extinction events. The Techno-Union would only act if Velia could offer technology or resources of equal value. The collective considered the plague an interesting phenomenon that should be studied, not stopped. Zara left the chamber in stunned silence. In the corridor outside, she stumbled to a bench and sat down heavily. Nico approached cautiously. "Your Highness, perhaps there are other options." "Smaller governments, private organizations, no," Zara whispered. "If the council will not help, no one else has the resources we need." She looked up at her loyal friend. "Return to the ship. I need time to think." Her quarters aboard the Velian vessel were modest compared to the luxury she had known at home. But luxury meant nothing now. She walked to her personal storage unit and withdrew a small, crystalline device no larger than her palm. The memory crystal had belonged to her mother, who had died just weeks ago from the plague that now consumed their world. Before her transformation, her mother had pressed the crystal into Zara's hands with trembling fingers. "This contains something important," her mother had whispered. "Something from when you were very young? Watch it when you need to remember why we never give up hope." Zara had been too busy with evacuation efforts and diplomatic missions to view the recording. But now, with hope seemingly exhausted, she activated the device. The crystal projected a three-dimensional image into the air above her desk. The scene showed a younger version of herself, perhaps 6 years old, standing in what appeared to be an alien forest. The trees were unlike anything on Valia, with brown bark and green leaves. This had to be from one of her childhood diplomatic trips with her parents. Young Zara in the recording looked lost and frightened. Her ceremonial robes were torn, and purple blood stained her arm where she had been injured. She was calling out in their language, clearly hoping someone would find her. Then a figure appeared through the trees. It was a being unlike any Zara had seen, tall but not giant, with pale skin and short brown hair. The creature wore some kind of uniform in muted colors. When it saw young Zara, it stopped and approached slowly, hands raised in a peaceful gesture. The being knelt down to her level and spoke in a gentle voice. The words were foreign, but Zara recognized the tone, kind, reassuring, protective. Young Zara backed away at first, frightened by this strange alien. But the being remained patient. The creature reached into a pack and withdrew what looked like medical supplies. It began treating young Zara's wound with careful motions, speaking softly the entire time. Even though they could not understand each other's language, something in the being's manner calmed the frightened child. Zara watched in amazement as the memory continued. The alien, for she realized now it must have been from whatever world they had been visiting, somehow communicated that it wanted to help her get home. It pointed at itself and said what sounded like Ben. Then it pointed at her questioningly. "Zara." Young Zara had replied, still wary, but no longer afraid. Ben smiled at this. It was a wonderful expression, full of warmth. He began walking, gesturing for young Zara to follow. When she hesitated, he extended his hand palm up. Offering rather than demanding, young Zara took his hand. What followed was extraordinary. The memory crystal had somehow recorded several days of their journey together. Ben led young Zara through forests and across streams, always patient when she needed to rest, always alert for danger when they encountered wild creatures. Large predators with sharp teeth and claws, Ben positioned himself between them and young Zara without hesitation. He carried primitive weapons, but used them only when necessary and always to protect rather than hunt. When young Zara grew hungry, Ben gave her food from his own supplies, even when it meant he went without. When she was cold during the night, he gave her his jacket and sat shivering by their small fire to keep watch while she slept safely. Most remarkable of all, Ben had been trying to learn her language. The recording showed him listening carefully when she spoke, repeating words back with terrible pronunciation but genuine effort. By the third day, he could say simple phrases like, "Are you well?" and "We go home" in broken Velian. The memory showed Ben's condition deteriorating as they traveled. He was clearly exhausted, hungry, and suffering from the cold. His uniform marked him as some kind of soldier, and Zara could see old scars on his hands and face that suggested he had seen combat. This being had his own troubles, his own pain, yet he never showed anything but kindness to a lost alien child. On the fourth day, they reached a structure that young Zara recognized, the Velian embassy on this world. Ben had somehow navigated across unknown terrain to bring her home safely. The recording showed Velian guards rushing out to meet them. Young Zara ran to the familiar faces, chattering excitedly about the kind alien who had saved her. But when she turned to point at Ben, he was already walking away. "Ben," young Zara called out, using the name he had taught her. He turned back and waved, that same warm smile on his face. Then he disappeared into the forest. The memory crystal's recording ended. Zara sat in stunned silence, staring at the empty space where the projection had been. She remembered being lost now, not clearly, but the emotions came back. The fear, the confusion, and then the overwhelming sense of safety she had felt with Ben. But what struck her most was not the rescue itself. It was the choice Ben had made. The advanced races of the Galactic Council had just spent an hour explaining why they could not help her people. They spoke of resource allocation, cost-benefit analysis, and logical decision-making. Each had technologies that could easily save Velia, but chose not to use them. Ben had been a primitive being on a primitive world. He possessed no advanced technology, no vast resources, no great power. All he had was basic medical supplies, simple weapons, and his own 2 hands. Yet when he found a lost child from another species, a child he had never seen before, who could not even speak his language, he chose to help. Not because it benefited him, not because it was logical, not because he expected reward. He helped because she needed help. That was reason enough. Zara began to understand something that shook her to her core. In her travels across the galaxy, she had met the most advanced civilizations ever to exist. Beings who could manipulate matter at the quantum level. Who could communicate across vast distances instantly. Who had unlocked secrets of space and time that younger races could barely comprehend. But none of them had what Ben possessed. None of them had chosen compassion over convenience. She activated her personal terminal and began searching through galactic databases. The world from her childhood had been called Earth, she discovered. The beings there called themselves humans. They were still considered a primitive species by galactic standards. They had only achieved faster than light travel within the last few decades. Most of the galaxy barely acknowledged their existence. But as Zara read about humans, she found something fascinating. Every contact report mentioned the same things. Humans were illogical. They made decisions based on emotion rather than calculation. They helped others even when it disadvantaged them. The advanced races considered these traits to be weaknesses. Zara began to wonder if they were wrong. She searched deeper, looking for any trace of the human named Ben. It took hours, but finally she found a record. Ben Torres, former soldier in something called the Human Colonial Defense Force. He had been on Earth during her childhood visit as part of a military unit recovering from combat operations. The record showed he was still alive, according to the database. Ben now worked as an engineer on a human colony ship called the New Horizon. They were attempting to establish a settlement on a hostile moon in a system far from Earth. Zara stared at his current location for a long time, remembering the kindness in his eyes as he helped a frightened, alien child find her way home. The advanced races of the galaxy had the power to save her people, but chose not to. This human had no such power, but had shown her something more valuable than technology. He had shown her that some beings chose to help. Simply because help was needed, Zara made a decision that would change everything. She was going to find Ben Torres. The journey to the Kepler colony took 3 days at maximum speed. Zara traveled alone in her personal scout ship, leaving Nico and her delegation behind with instructions to return to Velia. If she did not contact them within 10 days, as her ship approached the outer edge of the Kepler system, Zara studied the reports about the human colony. The New Horizon had arrived 6 months ago at a moon called Kepler for to see. The moon orbited a gas giant and possessed a thin atmosphere, harsh weather, a soil that was barely capable of supporting plant life. Most species would have abandoned such a world as unsuitable. Humans had decided to make it home anyway. Zara's ship detected the human colony from a great distance. Their energy signatures were primitive by galactic standards: fusion reactors instead of quantum cores, electromagnetic communications instead of quantum entanglement networks. But they were there, working steadily to transform a hostile world. As she drew closer, Zara could see the colony itself. It was built into the side of a mountain, with metal structures extending from natural caves. Solar collectors covered every available surface. She could see vast greenhouse domes where the humans were attempting to grow food. It looked impossibly difficult. It looked like it should have failed months ago, but it was working. Zara requested permission to land and was immediately contacted by the colony's traffic control. Unknown vessel. This is Kepler Colony Control. Please identify yourself and state your purpose. This is Princess Zara of the Velian Empire. I seek an audience with Ben Torres. There was a long pause. When the voice returned, it sounded confused. Ma'am, are you certain you want Ben Torres? He's one of our engineers, not a diplomat or government official. I'm certain. Please inform him that someone from his past wishes to speak with him. Another pause, then understood. You're cleared to land at Platform 2. Someone will meet you there. The landing platform was a simple metal structure built on a level section of rock. As Zara's ship settled down, she could see several humans approaching. They wore practical work clothes and moved with the confident stride of people accustomed to difficult conditions. One figure stood apart from the others, and Zara's breath caught as she recognized him. Ben Torres was older now, with gray streaks in his brown hair and new lines around his eyes. But his posture was the same, and when he smiled at seeing her ship, it was the same warm expression she remembered from the recording Zara activated, her ship's exit ramp, and walked down to meet them. The humans stared at her with curiosity, but no fear. Ben stepped forward, his expression puzzled but friendly. I'm Ben Torres, he said. You wanted to see me? Zara looked into his eyes and spoke words she had practiced during the journey. In careful English, she said, Thank you for bringing me home, Ben. For a moment, Ben's expression remained confused. Then his eyes widened as understanding dawned. Zara? He whispered. Little Zara from the forest. I am not so little now, Zara replied. Smiling despite the weight of her mission, Ben laughed, a sound full of joy and amazement. I can't believe it. How did you find me? How did you even remember? I remember everything, Zara said. You saved my life. You were just a lost kid who needed help, Ben replied, as if it had been the most natural thing in the world. Anyone would have done the same. Zara thought of the Galactic Council's cold calculations and shook her head. No, Ben, not anyone. Now the humans had been watching this exchange with growing amazement. A woman with short red hair stepped forward. Ben, are you going to introduce us? Right, sorry. Ben turned to his companions. Everyone, this is Princess Zara. I helped her when she was a child back on Earth about 20 years ago. Zara, meet the rest of my team. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, our chief scientist. That's Miguel Santos, head of construction. And this is Amy Park, our agricultural specialist. Each human greeted Zara with genuine warmth. Dr. Chen looked particularly fascinated. A Velian, we don't see many of your people out here. What brings you to our little corner of nowhere? Zara's expression grew serious. I need Ben's help. My people are dying, and the Galactic Council has refused to save them. Ben's smile faded instantly. Tell me what's happening. As they walked toward the colony's main entrance, Zara explained about the crystallization plague. She described how it spread, how it transformed living matter, how her world had only weeks before complete extinction. The humans listened in thoughtful silence. When Zara finished, Ben stopped walking. The Galactic Council refused to help. They have the technology to cure something like this. They said it was not cost-effective, Zara replied bitterly. 12 million lives are too few to justify the resource expenditure. Miguel shook his head in disgust. 12 million people. It's more than our entire colony fleet, Amy added quietly. Dr. Chen was already thinking analytically. This crystallization process, does it affect all organic matter equally? Plants, animals, people? Everything, Zara confirmed. It seems to transform carbon-based compounds into silicon crystal structures, while maintaining the original shape. Fascinating, Dr. Chen murmured. It's almost like a form of fossilization, but instantaneous and ongoing. They reached the colony's main entrance, a large airlock built into the mountain face. As they passed through, Zara was struck by the bustling activity inside. Humans hurried back and forth, carrying equipment, tending to hydroponic gardens, maintaining machinery. The air hummed with the sound of productive work. How many people live here? Zara asked. About 8,000, Ben replied. We're still building, though. Give us another year, and we'll have room for 20,000. 8,000 humans working to build a home on a world that should have been uninhabitable. Zara thought of her own people, advanced in many technologies, giving up hope when faced with a single plague. Ben led them to what appeared to be an engineering workshop. The walls were covered with diagrams and schematics, and workbenches held devices in various stages of assembly. "Tell me more about this crystallization," Ben said, settling into a chair and pulling out a notebook. "How fast does it spread? What triggers it? Have you identified the mechanism?" For the next several hours, Zara shared everything her scientists had learned about the plague. Ben listened intently, taking notes and asking detailed questions. Dr. Chen joined the conversation, and soon the two humans were discussing the problem with the same tense focus Zara had seen in the galaxy's greatest minds. But there was a difference. The advanced races had analyzed the plague with detached scientific interest. These humans talked about it as a problem that needed solving because people were suffering. "The pattern suggests it's not really a disease in the traditional sense," Dr. Chen said, studying Zara's data. "It's more like a form of life, trying to reproduce." "Yeah," Ben agreed. "Look at how it spreads. It's not random. It follows energy gradients and organic density patterns, like it's looking for the best material to convert." "But why silicon crystal?" Dr. Chen wondered. "What advantage does that form offer?" Zara had heard similar discussions among her own scientists and the researchers who had briefly examined the plague for the council. They all reached the same conclusion. The plague was too complex to understand quickly, and developing a cure would require years of research. Ben was approaching it differently. "What if we're thinking about this wrong?" he said suddenly. "What if this isn't something we need to fight?" Dr. Chen looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "Back on Earth, we learned that sometimes the best way to deal with an invasive species isn't to try to eliminate it," Ben explained. "Sometimes you introduce something that can coexist with it, control it, or even benefit from it." "Symbiosis," Dr. Chen breathed. "You think we could find something that could form a symbiotic relationship with this crystallization process?" "Maybe. Or maybe we could modify the process itself." Ben turned to Zara. "What happens to the crystallized organisms? Are they completely dead?" "Our scientists believe so," Zara replied. "The crystal forms maintain their shape but show no signs of life. Believe but don't know for certain." Zara paused. The transformation happened so quickly, there was little time for detailed study before the research teams themselves were affected. Ben and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. "We need samples," Dr. Chen said. "Samples of active plague material?" Zara shook her head. "That would be incredibly dangerous." "If it spread to your colony, we'll take precautions," Ben assured her. "But we can't help without understanding exactly what we're dealing with." That evening, Zara found herself in the colony's communal dining area, sharing a meal with Ben and his friends. The food was simple, but hearty vegetables grown in the colony's greenhouses. Protein synthesized from basic organic compounds. Water purified from the moon's ice deposits. It's not much compared to what you're probably used to, Amy said apologetically. "It's wonderful," Zara replied honestly. "You grew this yourselves." "Had to," Miguel laughed. "It's not like we can order takeout out here." "Why did you choose such a difficult world?" Zara asked. Surely there were easier places to establish a colony. The humans looked at each other, and Ben answered for them, "'Cause it was available." The easy worlds were already taken by older species. Humans are new to the galaxy, so we get what's left. But you could have stayed on Earth. It's a beautiful world with everything you need. "It is," Dr. Chen agreed. "But there are 11 billion people on Earth now. Some of us wanted room to try new things, to build something different." "Besides," Amy added, "there's something satisfying about making a hostile place livable. When we succeed here, we'll know we really earned it." Zara listened to their easy camaraderie and felt a pang of loss for her own world. Her people had been accomplished traders and diplomats, but she realized now that they had always relied on others for the difficult work of innovation and discovery. Humans created solutions because they had to. The next morning, Ben presented his plan. He had spent the night working with Dr. Chen and several other colony scientists, designing a safe way to study active plague samples. We'll use a completely isolated lab environment. He he explained, showing Zara the schematics. Sealed chambers, remote handling equipment, and a quantum disintegrator as a final failsafe if anything goes wrong. You built all this overnight? Zara asked in amazement. We had most of the components already, Dr. Chen replied. We use similar setups for studying potentially dangerous materials from the moon's surface. We just had to modify the containment protocols. Within hours, they had constructed the laboratory. Zara provided samples of crystallized material from her ship's research stores, and the humans began their analysis. What they discovered changed everything. It's not killing the organic matter, Dr. Chen announced after 6 hours of intensive study. It's preserving it. What do you mean? Zara asked. Ben pulled up a detailed molecular scan on the lab's display screen. Look at this. The crystalline structure isn't replacing the organic material, it's encasing it. The original cellular structure is still there, just locked in a silicon matrix. Which means, Zara felt her heart beginning to race. Which means it might be reversible, Dr. Chen said excitedly. If we can find a way to dissolve the silicon matrix without damaging the organic core, we could restore the original life forms. Ben finished. But even more importantly, they had identified what the crystallization process was really doing. It's not a plague, Ben realized. It's terraforming, he explained his theory. The crystallization entity was trying to transform Velia into an environment suitable for its own form of life. The silicon crystals weren't the end goal. They were a foundation, a structural framework for some kind of ecosystem, like coral, Amy suggested. Coral animals build calcium carbonate skeletons that become the base for entire reef ecosystems. Exactly. This entity might not even realize it's harming existing life. It might think it's improving the environment. Dr. Chen was already working on the next phase. If we're right, then we don't need to destroy the crystallization process. We need to redirect it. Over the next 3 days, the human team worked with an intensity that amazed Zara. They barely stopped to eat or sleep. Driven by the knowledge that millions of lives hung in the balance, Ben coordinated the effort, while Dr. Chen developed the theoretical framework. Miguel and his construction team built specialized equipment. Amy worked on biological compatibility issues. Other colonists joined the effort, contributing ideas and labor. Zara watched in wonder as the entire colony focused on saving a world they had never seen, for people they had never met. Finally, Ben called Zara to the laboratory. "You think we have a solution," he said. Exhaustion clear in his voice, but excitement shining in his eyes. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of fighting the crystallization entity, they would give it what it needed while protecting existing life. They had developed a biological agent based on Earth. Bacteria that formed symbiotic relationships with silicon-based minerals that would modify the crystallization process. The bacteria will integrate with the entity's structure, Dr. Chen explained. They'll provide organic interfaces that allow the crystals to coexist with carbon-based life instead of replacing it. The result should be a hybrid ecosystem, Ben added. Your people's organic cities will become part of living crystal structures, but the inhabitants will be restored and protected. And if it works, Amy concluded, Velia will become something new, a world where organic and silicon-based life forms exist together. It was not the cure Zara had expected. It was something far more ambitious. Will the Galactic Council approve of this intervention? Miguel asked. Zara thought of the cold calculations she had heard in the council chamber. They will say it violates natural development protocols. Then we won't ask them, Ben said simply. Dr. Chen nodded. Sometimes you have to do what's right instead of what's authorized. The journey to Velia took 2 days. Ben and his team traveled in their own ship, sturdy but unremarkable vessel that the galaxy's major powers would dismiss as primitive. Zara flew alongside them, her heart torn between hope and fear. When they arrived at Velia, the transformation was nearly complete. Vast crystal spires rose from the planet's surface, beautiful and terrible. But Ben's equipment detected organic signatures within the crystal matrices. Her people were still there, preserved and waiting. The deployment was swift and precise. Ben's team released their bacterial agents at key points around the planet. using Valia's own atmospheric currents to spread the treatment globally. Then they waited. The change began within hours. The harsh, purely silicon crystals began to soften, developing organic interfaces. Slowly, carefully, the preserved life forms began to emerge from their crystal shells. Zara watched from orbit as her capital city transformed. The crystal spires that had encased her people's buildings began to glow with a warm, organic light. Streets that had been frozen in crystal became flowing. Living pathways that pulsed with gentle energy, most wonderful of all. Her people began to move again. The first communication came from the surface after 12 hours. "Your Highness, this is Acting Governor Kell. We're alive. We're all alive." Zara closed her eyes and felt tears of relief streaming down her face. But the transformation was far from over. As the hours passed, it became clear that Valia was becoming something unprecedented in galactic history. The crystallization entity, now guided by Ben's symbiotic bacteria, was creating structures that enhanced rather than replaced organic life. Buildings became living things that provided perfect environmental control for their inhabitants. Transportation networks grew into flowing crystal channels that carried people and goods through living pathways. Gardens bloomed with hybrid plants that combined organic beauty with crystal strength. Within a week, reports began reaching the Galactic Council. A primitive human expedition had somehow solved a problem that the galaxy's greatest minds had declared impossible. More importantly, they had created something entirely new, a world where two completely different forms of life existed in perfect harmony. The council demanded explanations. How had such primitive beings succeeded where advanced science had failed? Zara provided the answer in her report. The humans succeeded because they chose compassion over calculation. They saw a problem that needed solving and devoted themselves to finding a solution. Not because it benefited them, but because people were suffering. They thought creatively instead of conventionally. And they acted with courage instead of caution. Most importantly, they understood that sometimes the best solution is not to fight what seems harmful, but to find a way for all life to flourish together. Ben Torres and his team returned to their colony. But their impact on the galaxy was just beginning. Word spread of the humans who had saved an entire world with primitive technology and unlimited determination. Other species began to take notice of humanity, not for their advanced science or military power, but for something far rarer, their ability to see hope where others saw only problems, and to choose kindness when logic suggested indifference. Zara kept in contact with Ben, updating him on Valia's continued transformation. Her world became a center of learning where beings from across the galaxy came to study the successful integration of silicon and carbon-based life. But more than that, it became a symbol of what was possible when someone chose to help simply because help was needed, just as a human soldier had once chosen to help a lost alien child find her way home.